Hey everybody, Mr. Lawrence here. Today we have Romeo and Juliet, the conclusion. This is Act 5, Scene 3 and 4. Scene 3 really picks up with the friar. The friar realizes the mistake that he's made. The timing is off with the notification to Romeo that Juliet is pretending to be dead. And so the friar goes racing to the crypts, to the cemetery where Juliet is buried. He gets there. It depends if you're reading the play is done one way, and then like every single movie version is done differently. And this is where we really start to analyze if we are watching the movie scenes. I can't access them all, so I'm just sticking to the text. But Friar Lawrence races to the cemetery, asks for a crowbar so that he can try to get in. However, Romeo got there first. Romeo got there first, threatens Balthazar, his servant, says, "If you follow me in, I will beat you." um, it's actually really sad because Romeo is there with his poison stronger than 20 men. Romeo gets there. In the play, he also Romeo gets there and he sees somebody trying to defend Juliet's honor, and it's Paris. Paris is just kind of a tragedy here. He's there to protect Juliet's body. Basically, he's afraid that Romeo's going to show up to desecrate it. So Romeo basically says, "Listen, Paris, I don't want to do this, but if you do not get out of the way, I'll have to fight you." And Paris says, "Bring it." And so Paris and Romeo fight, and Paris falls. Paris's dying wish. Romeo has no requirement to follow this, but Paris says, just lay me down by Juliet. And in the play, he does. He drags Paris's body in and lays him somewhere near Juliet. Romeo then goes into the crypt. He goes in, he takes Paris's body, and some of the movie versions just completely skip Paris. But I think it's a good scene in that Romeo shows his humanity. It's like one of the last honorable things he does is honors Paris's dying wish. So Romeo goes in, sees Juliet seemingly dead. He then he's sad. He talks about how her lips don't even look like they're dead. Her cheeks don't even look like they're dead. In fact, there's a little pink in them. And the truth is Juliet's starting to wake up. She hasn't physically started to wake up, but her body is starting to process. She's probably breathing a little bit. Her heart's been beating, of course. Whatever Friar Lawrence gave her was really pretty convincing because everybody has thought she's dead, including Romeo. So Romeo, in scene 3, gets out his little vial and he says a little monologue about how sad he is and how his life will never be complete without his Juliet. And he drinks and he dies. Juliet, on cue, wakes up right after he's died. His body's still warm. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what did you do?" In the play, this is about the same time that Friar Lawrence shows up. Having gone into the crypt, he sees a dead Paris. He sees a dead Romeo. And then he's there as Juliet wakes up. And he's like, "Juliet, don't look over here. You don't want to look over here. Come on, let's go. We have to hurry because, people are coming." Um, this is, just a powerful scene. The friar starts, "I dare no longer stay." He starts going into all this stuff. I want to say this, the friar at this point kind of seems like he's scared of the law, or he's scared of people knowing his involvement in things. I just think it's so overwhelmingly sad that the plan to have Romeo show up just as Juliet wakes up and all that messed up, and Romeo is now dead. He's the friar. I mean, remember, the friar was Romeo's main like confidant. It's who Romeo trusted most. It was really a father figure. Think back to when you guys did last week the parental expectations. The friar is more of a parent to Romeo than his parents are, just as the nurse is more of a mother to Juliet than the Capulets are. So, anyway, Friar Lawrence is devastated that Romeo is dead, and he's trying to get Juliet to leave. And Juliet's like, "No, I am not leaving." Friar Lawrence then bails. I don't know what to say. Friar Lawrence leaves. Juliet, desperate and devastated because Romeo is not faking it, right? What he took is for real. She tries to take some of his poison. There's nothing left. She tries to kiss it off of him, thinking there might be something. There's not. And she's like, "Oh, no, not nay, even a drop." She's just really upset. And so she looks around like in a panic, and she finds his knife. And she's like, "Let this be your sheath." And she dies. So, obviously, this is in the Capulets vault. So there's all the dead Capulets in there. There's now also a dead Paris, a dead Romeo, and an actually dead Juliet. Now, that's not all that happens. We also, scene 5 is the conclusion. Once the guards arrive, word gets to the to the to the prince that that there's been all this death, all this stuff has gone on. The prince shows up, and the prince looks around to everybody and says, "Who can talk about what's happened here?" And that's where Benvolio speaks up a little bit, and then they bring the friar back, and the friar explains, "Listen, here's what happened," and goes through the process along with Benvolio. The friar is devastated again. The prince is devastated. Everybody is just upset. In fact, as the news of all of this happened, it's a subtle line, but hopefully you saw it. Lady Capulet had a heart attack and died. So Lady Capulet is dead. Juliet is dead. Romeo is dead. Paris is dead. Not to mention Tybalt. Oh yeah, Romeo, before he did what he did, he saw Tybalt laying in the tomb. Tybalt is dead, and Mercutio is dead. You've got like all these dead people in the story of Romeo and Juliet. It's really sad. It is, remember, a tragedy. It is the ultimate tragedy. The play concludes with the prince basically chewing everybody out, saying that these families have suffered enough. Everybody is punished. Everybody has a consequence. The children are all dead. No matter what happened between this rivalry between the two families, their children are dead, and it is just a heartbreaking scene. Some of the movie versions show different parts of this. The famous, really weird version is the newest movie version, and it shows Juliet waking up before Romeo dies from his poison. They like take the irony factor to like 15. That's really a sad one because she watches him die. And anyway, enough of that. The play wraps up with the two fathers. Remember, it's the two fathers are the ones that are getting chewed out by the prince. But the two fathers come together and agree that they will honor their children's love by mending the truce. There will no longer be a rivalry between the two families. And then they plan to build a statue to memorialize their children. And that's basically how the play ends. Well, I guess they technically have a funeral of sorts for them. Yeah, it doesn't really say too much about that, but for those of you that have stuck with me to the end, congratulations. You just read a Shakespearean play. Hopefully you had a good experience. It is a wild play. It's got all kinds of craziness. Many of you, your next play will be a little bit heavier. You'll probably do Hamlet. That's typically for a 10th grade class. And it's filled with all sorts of irony too. That one, it's a great play. All of these Shakespearean plays are great in their own way. Some people just can't stand them, but honestly, if you take the time to like just slow down and read it little by little, it's totally understandable and doable. The language, it's English. It's still English. It's just a little bit different from what you're used to. So I hope this reading has been a good experience because it's worth knowing these plays. People refer to them all the time. There's plenty of allusions in the play, but there's in literature there's tons of allusions to the play. Think about all of the music that references Romeo and Juliet. That's an activity we usually would do. It's talked about a lot in pop culture. People understand it. The idea of you know mis mismatched lovers. Um, they just everything was against them, and that's kind of sad. But people get that. People understand that it's a universal idea, and Shakespeare, boom, hit the nail on the head. So again, hopefully you enjoyed the play. That is the final reading for our course. I'll be doing little things next week for the next little bit, but they're not required, and I won't have assignments to go with them. So hopefully you enjoyed the play, and good job if you've read every single little part of it. Take care and be safe.